It's a rings things. Yeah, rings things. So, trust me. For hand stuff. Other stuff is debatable, but for hand stuff, they're alright. But everything's just going to explode. All sorts of weird stuff. It's discipline or die. Yo, what's going on, guys? Rhys here from More Than Lifting with the More Than Lifting podcast. Conversations about calisthenics, bodyweight training, gymnastics, all that good stuff. I'm Rhys, a personal trainer from the UK and founder of morethanlifting.com, and in this episode we're going to be talking about my favourite bit of training here. Yeah, it's the gymnastics rings, because they're awesome, and because I haven't really spoken much about it, and I think I've got some pretty good reasons why you should start training with rings. So I've kind of boiled them down to 7 different reasons, right, why gymnastics rings are the tits, and you should definitely get some. But I'm going to go, at the end of the episode, I'm going to talk about some of the problems with rings that you can have. So yeah, we'll cover that in a bit anyway. For now, let's chat about some rings, why rings are awesome. So, in my opinion, yeah, gymnastics rings, they're the best thing. They're my favourite discipline in gymnastics, my favourite event or discipline, and I don't know, I just always just took to them. I learned to do muscle ups on them first, like before bars, so for me that was just all the more reason to enjoy them more than anything else, really, I guess. And so it kind of encouraged me to stick with them more than anything else. But also there's something that's just really cool about them. They're kind of just a bit elegant, and yeah, just being up on them feels really good, and we'll get into that in a bit anyway. But personally, I love the rings. And you don't have to use the rings just for like gymnastics either. Just as training equipment, they are awesome. You can use them as makeshift TRXs for a start. So if you're training at home, you can use them for like as a TRX. But the caveat to that is that they're kind of uncomfortable on your feet, which like you have to like stick your legs in and the wood and oh yeah. So maybe just for hand stuff, just for the rings are good. They make a good TRX replacement for hand stuff. Other stuff is debatable, but for hand stuff, they're all right. So, right, let's get into this then, before this podcast gets too rude. So, I've got 7 reasons why rings are the best thing ever. And the first one is that it enables just such a much greater freedom of movement. You can basically go anywhere in the rings. You can go all the way round, you can go all the way forward, you can do like tuck yourself in and do like forward rolls just in circles, because nothing is impeding your movement in that way except your strength, yeah, and stability. Yeah, you can go above or below, you can go transition between them, you can go one side to the other, like a back lever to front lever kind of thing. You can do that without having to tuck your legs up and wiggle around under the bars like you see people do so much. Because your hands are separate, they're not fixed by a bar, you can basically do whatever you fancy, as long as you can stay stable in it and you don't hurt yourself. So, first one, freedom of movement. And that's big, because you can do stuff, like I said, you just can't do on other bits of equipment. One of my favourites is like Bulgarian split squats, Bulgarian dips. How did I mess that up? So Bulgarian dips, right, they're a really good example of this. You can't do them anywhere else, because a Bulgarian dip, right, you start in your support position, so as you would for a regular dip, parallel kind of grip, and as you come down, you turn your elbows out to the side, so you do this kind of turn your hands out to the side, and your palms go from facing into your body to pointing behind you, so they turn like 90 degrees, and it's a very, very difficult one. Great for cross, like training for your cross and stuff like that, but like they are well hard. Bulgarian split squats. I said it again. Bulgarian dips. They are very difficult and really good exercise. Though you should definitely do them. If you've got some rings, if you've got access to rings, give them a try. So the next one then is stability, right, and isometric tension. This is something you won't notice that you need or that it sucks until you get on the rings. You could be great at dips on a dipping bar. You could be great at L-sits on P-bars, on the dipping bars, on the floor even. Yeah, but once you get up on the rings, it's a whole new kettle of fish. Just being in the support position, so in your, where you start in your dip and your arms are straight and you just start up the top. Yeah, being above the rings. Yeah, that's your support position, is above as opposed to below, which is hanging. So you got hanging and support, just for supported positions, just so we know. And that's either side, up or down, like above or below what you're holding on to, rings, bars, whatever. So my point is, just being in a supported position on the rings is hard. Having your arms straight is one thing, yeah, and when you get comfortable, like when you get used to being there, you can kind of relax and it can be quite comfortable. You can let your shoulders kind of relax and stuff and you can kind of chill there. But as soon as you try and do anything, you need to be pulling those rings in, like keeping them underneath your shoulders. Your arms need to be straight. You need very good shoulder stability and strength, like just across your whole back, really, actually. Your arms need to be solid. It'll rinse up your triceps and your chest. You wouldn't even realize how much you use your chest in the rings. But my point is just being it's because the rings want to just, gravity wants to pull you down. So you're going to go, the rings are going. So unless you're holding yourself up, you're going to fall, you're going to go down. Yeah, it's simply that's it. You've got to be holding yourself on. You've got to be holding those rings in close to your body, tight the whole time. And this, right, what this will actually do is improve your discipline in a lot of exercises. So dips, for example, like your dip technique will improve just by learning dips on a bar, on the rings, because you can't not do it the right way then, you know. Can't do it with your elbows flailing out to the side. They've got to be tight into your body going behind you. Because as soon as you open them out, that's it. You slip through and then you're on the floor. So holding on is hard just on the rings. So the amount of tension that you work in the whole time you're up there doing whatever, yeah, the stability it takes is just another level compared to anything else. Another example of this is L-sits. So L-sits, you might be able to do L-sit on the floor, P-bars, whatever. Once you get up on the rings, this support position just takes it to another level. When you're on the rings, if you lift your legs up into that L-sit position, you need to have a solid L-sit, basically, because as soon as you lift your legs up, your back, the rings are going to try and come forward a bit, and you're going to almost fall backwards. So you need to resist that to get your legs up high enough, and then to actually square your shoulders nice and present it. It's so hard. It is so hard. Trust, it's so hard. Try and do it like a decent L-sit. When you do an L-sit on the rings, your technique will just be terrible, because it's very difficult to push your bum through in line with your body and pull your shoulders back so you're like fixed and solid rather than bent up or weird. Like you see a lot of people do L-sits when they first kind of start and their bum's sticking out the back, and it's almost like they're leaning forwards and just lifting their bum off the ground almost, rather than doing an L shape. So it's hard. This actually points to the next point, right, which is that it makes everything harder. It's not just your L-sits, it's not just because of the stability, well, it's because of the stability and the tension required for a lot of it. It makes everything harder, except inverted hangs. Right? Inverted hangs are so easy on the rings compared to on a bar. And an inverted hang, right, is where you're hanging upside down. Not by your feet, by your hands. Yeah, so your hips are right up by the bar and your feet are sticking out above it. And from a pull-up bar, this is really difficult because it forces your body into the hollow body position. So where your shoulders are in front of you and your hands, so your hands are going just down in front of your hips rather than to the side. Yeah, just like you do in a hollow body position lying on the floor. Whereas on the rings, that bar is not in the way. Yeah, so your hips can just fit right between your hands, nice and comfy. Your legs can stick up straight. It's the easiest thing, provided you got enough like tension across your whole body to keep yourself straight and vertical, which is it's really easy. So that's the only one, really. And pull-ups. Pull-ups are a weird one, yeah, because the difficulty with pull-ups on the rings, if you've got any length of rope, it's easy to end up swinging about, and which is obviously what you don't want. You don't want to be kipping or anything. But actually, the isolating the technique and the right parts of your body and your back, that works really well with the rings. So that although the rings aren't necessarily making your pull-ups harder, it does give you. It doesn't really make pull-ups harder. What it does though is it makes pull-up variations harder, because try and keep a wide grip. Try and keep a wide grip on your pulls the whole time. When you come down, you're not going to stay wide, you're just going to pull back to a neutral. So that's kind of a bit awkward, but there's nothing stopping you doing them. In fact, they're really good for pulls, and it can help a lot with your wrists because the rings can move a little bit. So it's not, it keeps it as almost like a neutral position the whole time, which is quite nice. So it makes everything else harder though. Actually, you know what? Now we talked about it, muscle-ups I learned muscle ups on the rings. I learned to do them on the rings first before I could do them on the bar. And that's because of my shoulder mobility, because I've got quite good shoulder mobility, just general kind of flexibility in my upper body. Not my splits. My splits are disgusting. But just generally, I've got pretty good mobility. So I've got a pretty good range of motion across all my exercises. For a muscle up, you need deep dips, you need high pulls. I can do both of them, all right? But transitioning between them in the bar was quite difficult. Same with the inverted hang, you've got to be going around the bar, okay, rather than just straight up. Now, in a muscle up, you have the advantage of being able to go between your hands. Yeah, so I can pull up high enough to then pull between the rings and then push up, which is how you do it on the rings, how you do your muscle ups. Because of my mobility, that made it a lot easier. I could almost just get up high enough and like let my body just rock to balance, and I'd be above, and like my shoulders would be on top of my hands, and I could push up into that dip to finish off. So I keep saying it makes everything harder, but actually I'm coming up with a list of a few things. Like, no, it's not really the case. Muscle ups, a lot of people find muscle ups on the bar easier because a lot of people kip with their muscle ups, but for strict movement, like definitely provided you got good mobility as well. That's the other thing I'd say is easier to do on the rings, but it's different for everyone. So don't expect, just because I said that, for you to just be able to smash them out on the rings, even though you can't do them on bars. You still need your high pulls, you still need your low dips, you still need good range of motion, good mobility. So it's not just a walk in the park just because you got rings now. So so the next one then is that the rings, they enable you to do advanced skills, stuff you couldn't do otherwise. Yeah, it's just stuff you can't do. A Maltese, like you see people try, like do Maltese-esque kind of exercises on the bars, and I'm not putting that down because it's pretty epic, but a lot of people do it like on their forearms and stuff like that because it is just like the hardest hold. It's harder than a planche, a Maltese. If you don't know what a Maltese is, by the way, it's like an iron cross but horizontal rather than hanging vertical. Yeah, so there you go. Imagine that. It's very difficult. And yeah, it's like one of the hardest exercises on the rings. It's one of the hardest exercises just forever. And yeah, you can't do stuff like that. You know what I mean? You can kind of, they look kind of like, it looks like a Lelani planche. If you know, Lelani push-ups, right, is when you're like lying in a, with your like a handstand. So you're just lying flat on the ground with your hands in front of you, and then you push with your toes, and your hands, you just push into the ground to do your push-up like that. It's like a hollow body press, if you like. It's a strange one. It's very, very hard, the Lelani push-ups. So this is like a Lelani planche, yeah, where you're just like wide out, flat, completely flat with the body, and just lift up the tiniest little bit. But you can't do that. No, you can't do a cross. You can't go around doing crosses everywhere. You can hold on to stuff, but that's not the same as a cross. You can kind of train your cross a little bit on the cables down the gym, but it's not a cross still. So it enables you to do skills you just can't do anywhere else. You can't do a planche through to a back lever anywhere other than the rings. I mean, unless you had some really wide bars or something, but you know what I mean. Like, it's a ring exercise because you can't do that on the bar. You can't really do that on P bars. You might be able to, might be some guys out there who can, but like, it's a rings things. Yeah, rings things. So trust me. But that's not it, all right? Don't think that weak argument is all I've got. So check this out. Your muscle up. Imagine doing a muscle up inverted. Yeah, so you're like in an inverted hang, and then you pull through. Yeah, so you pull up, so you're almost like in like a shoulder stand or like a headstand, then you push into a handstand. This is actually an exercise. I can't remember what the name's called. Yeah, which, that's actually ruined me. But this is a skill in gymnastics. So you go from an inverted hang and you just push straight up into a handstand. And I can't remember what it is, but it is like, it's pretty crazy. It's an upside down muscle up. You know what I mean? You can't do that anywhere else, guys. If I think of other stuff, then I'll have to just weave it in here. So I've got a list of arguments of skills. I'm sure there's people out there who can do stuff like that, like on bars or whatever, but like you can't, you know what I mean? People can't do that. So the next one then is, it's not just the skills that it helps you do advanced strength stuff you can't do anywhere else, okay? And like, you can argue the toss with me here, but archer dips, like, where can you do archer dips? comfortably without risking like some actual damage to your body. I've seen someone actually do it recently. I saw someone do it on Instagram, and I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Fucking well done. That was sick. But still, I wouldn't encourage people to do that on bars or anything because of what it takes out of your shoulders and stuff. It's not a good. Your body's never in a good position. You know, not really. So on the rings, because you can fit between them, there's nothing interrupting you. It makes it a lot easier. And also you can keep your body still and you can move, just let your arms move. Okay, and this helps because you can shift your weight comfortably across your arms, but you're not like, you're never overcompensating on one side. Yeah, which you can do on P bars or on a high bar or something, and that's how you get injuries, like imbalances come up, and it just doesn't, it's not good practice. Okay, you're asking for trouble. We'll leave it at that. So yeah, that you can't do. You can do like archer muscle ups as well. Imagine that, archer muscle ups, and that's one arm straight the whole time. So it's like a one arm muscle up one side, and the other arm just stays out nice and straight and presses you through. And then you can also do like around the world muscle ups, which are the same, but you switch. So you one arm straight up one side, and then you come down with the other arm straight. Yeah, so you swap over in the middle, and yeah, that's pretty cool as well. So yeah, it enables loads of advanced strength stuff that is awkward or dangerous to do in other places. Yeah, stuff like that you can't do. That Bulgarian dip. Yes, I got it right. That Bulgarian dip, you can't really do anywhere else. I mean, you can't do it anywhere else. It's that simple. Your cross and stuff like that, obviously, like I've said, but it's just, yeah, it helps you just do stuff. Yeah, and it's so much harder. Oh my God. Anyway, so the next one then is it helps you do more interesting combinations and like routines, which we covered in a previous podcast. A couple of episodes ago, I spoke about like the actually doing these, like doing combinations of exercises, routines, quote unquote. It sounds so cheesy and like, I don't know, it sounds like routines got this thing to it. And I speak about that in the podcast, how awkward it is saying stuff like that. But yeah, you can do stuff on the rings that you just can't do anywhere else. So let's have a look at some of these combinations. So the big one that screams out is front lever to back lever. Yeah, and you can do that without having to get into the bar. I've already mentioned that. Check this out though, a muscle up to back lever. So you can't do this anywhere else. Just simple, you can't, because you need to go through your hands. So you can't do it on a high bar, you can't do it on a bar, you can't do it on your P bars or nothing like that. I mean, you could probably do it on P bars, maybe, if you had really high P bars. But you can do it on the rings, it's all right. And it's hard. It is difficult to do. And this especially puts a lot of pressure on your biceps as well, and your elbows, and you really feel it, especially when you're training it. You almost don't want to let your arms go straight, because it feels like when you do, like everything's just going to explode. But if you train it right and you're careful when you don't just try and fly into a full lay back lever just immediately. Start with the straddles, tucks and stuff like that, build up to it and you'll be all right. And it is pretty epic. You're not just limited to that either. You can then go through into your front lever. You can go from your front lever muscle up through to your handstand and then come down into something just a lot more comfortably than you can on other things. And yeah. So I guess that's about it. Right, so the last one then, number 7. So far, right, we've had freedom of movement. Yeah, you can just move a lot better between stuff, above, below, transitions. You got stability, you got isometric tension. Yes, stuff that just you don't notice you haven't worked on or is weak until you get on the rings. You don't notice any of that stuff is lacking until you put your skills to the test on the rings. All right, it makes everything harder. All your basic stuff, yeah, suddenly is difficult again. And the stuff that you thought was easy, yeah, your dips, simple stuff like that is so much harder on the rings. Anything in support where you're above your hands. So what else have we got? Yeah, it enables more advanced skills. So things like your upside down muscle up, like we spoke about, your planche through to Maltese, or like a cross to Maltese, or anything with a Maltese in. It enables you to do more advanced strength stuff. So like archer muscle ups around the world, archer dips, Bulgarian dips, stuff like that, which is just so you just can't do anywhere else. It enables you to do more interesting combinations, things like a muscle up to back lever, which is just super hard and awesome. It looks pretty awesome as well. The last one, guys, is a bit shit, I admit that. All right, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, being able to do stuff on the rings is pretty awesome. Not a lot of people can do anything on the rings. Anyone who just jumps on the rings will just struggle to do anything the first time. Yeah, and if you can just step up there and bust out some really epic shit just straight away, no dramas, like casual, and it just looks awesome. And it's not just about the aesthetics of it, yeah, but it's about you having like that kind of finesse to it as well. Like the rings just help you really build that in a way you can't see anywhere else. Like your transitions between exercises look keen because you're just totally hanging. You can't like rely on anything else except your strength and your control, and that's what it really shows. Yeah, you see people kipping and doing all sorts of weird stuff on the bars. All sorts of weird stuff, and you can't get away with stuff like that on the rings. Yeah, it's fucking, I can't, like, it's discipline or die basically, because if you don't have the discipline, if you're not forcing that control out of you, you're not working that stability while you're there, you're just your arms are gonna separate. Yeah, you're gonna lose that stability over the rings, and you're just gonna slip down in through the gap, and that'll be it. Ring's over. So that is it, guys. 7 reasons why rings are the best thing in the world. Rings are the tits. Downsides of rings, though, just as we get into it. All right, rings at home is awkward. I don't like the idea of having rings and then hanging them on my door frame pull-up bar, which is supported on my door frame, and then having my whole weight or body weight on it, moving around with strange kind of leverages and weight distribution, which is how you train with calisthenics, isn't it? Like your levers and stuff, like that makes me nervous. Also, fitting in between your door a lot of the times is hard, which, we all get that, so don't worry, mate. It doesn't mean you're fat, it just means you got big old beastly shoulders. One advantage of them actually being at home, though, is you can do the TRX stuff. You can use them for like TRX stuff, but to be able to have them out hanging off your door frame pull-up bar, you need to constantly be adjusting them to be able to do pull-ups. You basically be doing on your knees the whole time. Like you'd probably be able to just sit on your knees and just leave your feet on the floor and just do it, because like it's awkward enough doing them on door frame pull-up bar, but then doing them when you're lowered even more to account for the rings, it's like you're almost wasting your time. Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not total like waste of money. If you find somewhere you can put them, or that you have access to them in the gym, rings are awesome. Yeah, it doesn't mean you need to go out and buy rings, all right? But you can, and I'd encourage you to, if you have somewhere to use them. If you don't have a very high ceiling, yeah, some people have crazy high ceilings, like barn houses or like really high garage kind of ceilings or whatever. You have somewhere you can hang your rings, or a tree. You can take them down the park and hang them from a tree. But generally speaking, like in a normal house, the ceiling height, 244, and it 2 meters 44. That isn't high enough for rings, because like you wouldn't be able to hang off them, and even if you could, you wouldn't be able to like be above them. Then it would be one or the other. You'd have to keep adjusting them. You wouldn't be able to get all these advantages that you can get out of the rings. You wouldn't be able to actually like utilize any of those bonus features, which would suck, man. Like that would suck. So if you're gonna get rings, and I would encourage you to just make sure you have somewhere you can use them first. Don't buy rings and have them sit in your cupboard, because what a waste. All right. But if you have somewhere like a park or something close by, somewhere you can take them, like that is awesome. Definitely get some rings. They are the best. Send me pictures, videos of you doing ring stuff, guys, because it'll be awesome. But that is it for this episode, all right? So if you like what you heard, as always, give us a like, a subscribe. Leave us a little honest 5-star rating and review. Wink, wink. I say that with like a joke, but actually, like, giving us a review helps me help you guys better, because I get a bit of feedback. It also helps me reach new people, helps me get discovered by other guys, because it improves it. Yeah, it just helps me out. So I greatly appreciate it. If you do, give me a message on Instagram, let me know, and we'll work out something. I'll give you some tips on some training or some videos, or we'll have a conversation or whatever. You can reach out to me on Instagram anyway if you want, at More Than Lifting. We'll have a chat, because that's all right. Otherwise, guys, that is it for this episode. I'll catch you in the next one, and as always, keep in touch with yourself.